But at the same time, I would get so many beautiful emails and comments from people around the world that said how much the yoga had helped them and how much, how grateful they were for it and how they wouldn't be able to practice yoga without our YouTube channel. And so with that, I don't know, I just looked at it as a way that I was on the right path. Even though many times it felt like I wasn't, I just took that as a sign from the universe that yeah, you're on the right path. Here are people telling you how much they appreciate what you're doing.
Namaste. You're listening to the Sivana podcast. Join us on an exploration of Eastern spirituality, yoga philosophy, and conscious living for the new age. This podcast is a production of SivanaSpirit.com, the best place to shop for unique clothing, spiritual handcrafted jewelry, healing gemstones, and fair trade gifts from the Far East. Now, here's your host, Brett Larkin.
Hello, friends. Welcome back to the Sivana podcast. I'm super excited for today's episode because we're going to talk about all things yoga teacher training, yoga career. So if you've ever thought or maybe even remotely considered the idea of taking a training, whether for the purposes of deepening your personal practice or you have visions of teaching yoga yourself, I have the perfect colleague and friend here to speak with us today, Lesley Fightmaster. I'm going to tell you all about her. First, I just wanted to thank all of you who've left ratings and reviews of the show. This helps get the podcast in front of even more people who are looking to improve their life through yoga, meditation, and natural healing. So I'd love it if you'd consider leaving us a rating or short review on iTunes, even if that's not how you normally listen to the show. All right, so diving into today's topic, we have with us YouTube sensation, Lesley Fightmaster. So just like me, Lesley teaches yoga on YouTube. She has a huge channel. She leads a breath-focused, alignment-based class. She loves movement, and she really believes in her heart that the transformational gift of yoga should be available to as many people as possible, and she's done that through her channel. And she's also an E-RYT certified yoga instructor and on the faculty of YogaWorks teacher training department. And she leads both 200-hour and 300-hour programs. Lesley, hello. Thanks for being here.
Hi, Brett. Thanks for having me.
So before we dive in on how to stay grounded and successful teaching yoga in the digital age, or whether you're just thinking about teaching yoga in the digital age, I'd love it for people to just learn a little bit more about you and hear about how you got started teaching yoga and then how you got started on YouTube, because they've got to hear that story from me in the episode where Ashton interviewed me. So guys, if you're interested in that, be sure to check that out. But Lesley has her own really unique story around how she blew up on YouTube.
You're so kind. I started practicing yoga it was right around 2000, and I was living in San Francisco. And I was practicing a lot at Yoga Tree, which you probably are familiar with. And I started practicing yoga because I wanted to be able to meditate, believe it or not. I was really wanting to be able to sit quietly in meditation. And when I tried, it was a disaster. I couldn't do it because my mind was way too noisy, and I couldn't sit there and I couldn't focus on my breath or anything because it was just so noisy. So I heard that practicing yoga is really helpful for meditation. And I wanted to meditate because I had been in a 12-step program since 1994. And part of it is practicing meditation. And so it was because of an alcohol problem. So I was trying to sort of, keep my life together. Meditation was like a really big part of being able to feel comfortable in my own skin.
I think this is cool because so many people come to yoga focusing on the physical first. They're trying to get in shape and then the meditation comes after. But it seems like as part of your recovery or addiction recovery, the meditation was what you were most focused on initially.
Right, exactly. I was really interested in being able to do it because, like I said, when I tried to do it, it was a disaster. I was the worst meditator ever, I think. So I went to a Bikram class, and it was because all my friends were doing Bikram yoga, and it's very, very hot. And for me, the heat just really didn't agree with me. I think I'm just way too pitta to go into like a really hot yoga class. So I didn't like it at all. And I was so disappointed because I thought that was yoga. And I thought, oh shoot, that's yoga and I can't do it because it was so uncomfortable for me. Then I found out that there were other types of yoga, and I found like a vinyasa flow type, Ashtanga type class that I loved. And as soon as I got into Shavasana, it was like the first time that I could remember being comfortable, like being at peace, being able to just completely sink into my body and release tension, release problems, release those voices that were constant in my mind. So after that, I was completely hooked. And I started just taking lots and lots of vinyasa flow classes. And fast forward about 7 years later, I moved from San Francisco to Orange County. And by the way, in San Francisco, I had the most phenomenal teachers ever. And I thought, I could never be a teacher because I saw like these amazing teachers and how, they did their classes and all the things that they were able to do, and how they conveyed the yoga through their words, through their bodies, through their breath practice, all of that. And I was just always amazed with how amazing they were. So I moved to Orange County and I took some classes, and there are amazing teachers in Orange County. But for whatever reason, when I first got to Orange County, I didn't find them. And I took some yoga classes and I was like, whoa, hey, if they can teach yoga, I could teach yoga. So I decided to sign up for teacher training. And I think it was sort of like, it must have been kind of divinely inspired, because since taking teacher training and since being in Orange County for a while, there are amazing teachers here. And for whatever reason, I just didn't find them at first. So I think that was...
The universe was hiding them from you, so you'd become a teacher yourself.
I think the universe was. I think the universe was like, hey, we know she's a little bit, she's a little self-conscious. She's a little unsure of herself. So let's give her a little boost.
Well, I want to pause you right there because I think that's something that listeners can really relate to. Like, I know that's one of the things we wanted to dive in here, is not just to talk about staying grounded and successful as a yoga teacher, but those people who are on the fence or they're considering yoga teacher training and they're not sure if it's worth doing if they're not really going to teach. And I know that's something you have opinions on and wanted to touch on. What do you have to say to folks who are kind of just thinking, maybe I want more yoga, I want to deepen my practice, but I don't know that this is going to be a career?
I just think that if you love yoga, you owe it to yourself to take a teacher training, because if you love it, it's a way that you can really immerse yourself in the full practice. So not just the asana, but you can find out about the other 7 limbs of yoga. You can find more out about the yamas and the niyamas and the pranayama practices and the meditation. And it's all so enriching for someone who loves yoga, that you may find that you finish the teacher training and you want to teach. You may find, wow, I don't want to teach, but I am so glad that I did that because I learned so much about the yoga practice and about how to practice safely in my own body and how to create my own home practice that's best for me. You learn so many things other than just how to teach yoga.
I agree. I feel like yoga teacher training needs to be renamed to just like life school that none of us got in our traditional education, because the name makes it seem so narrow. Like you're only doing this if you're training to teach. And that's what I tell prospective students too, is that this is a really transformational, life-changing experience. And yes, you can go on retreats, unless you can go to workshops and things like that. Those are great ways to deepen your practice. But if you really want to deep dive, you are yoga obsessed, you are a yoga addict, then yoga teacher training, I think, is the best next step, because you're going to bond with a very specific teacher who's going to mentor you in the way that I think yoga was traditionally meant to be passed down, which was like very much having a super close relationship with your teacher. So I think who you study with is incredibly important. And then you're also going to have that community, whether it's online or in person, of people who have those same values and that same thirst for knowledge you do, and you're going through something with them for months or weeks. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Absolutely. I am still very good friends with several of the women that were in the teacher training that I took in 2006, and we're still like very good friends. So it's definitely, I always say as well that it is a life-changing experience. And when I say it, I really can't even convey what that means. Like the words just really don't do it justice, but it's really an amazing experience. There was a gal who took the training several years ago, and she said, it's sort of like when I go into my bedroom and I look at everything in my room and it looks okay. Everything looks fine. But when I open up the closet or I open up the drawers, everything is kind of chaotic and messy. But on the outside, on the surface, it looks fine. And then I decide I'm going to get in there and sort of organize and clean it all out. And that's sort of like what the teacher training does. It's like you get in there, you organize, you clean out, you get rid of stuff that you don't need anymore. And you make room for new things that will really benefit you. And so by the end of the training, you might not look a whole lot different than you did in the start of the training, but within you, so much has changed when you just sort of like look in a little bit deeper, just scratch the surface a little bit. There are profound changes that occur.
And there's no excuse to not do a training because there are so many. You can do them a month in Costa Rica. You can do them weekends locally. You can seek out Lesley. We're going to give you her info at the end. And if you can't, or you're a mom, you can do it online in my training. And Lesley's actually featured in my training, and it's highly interactive. And we're constantly talking on video chat and Zoom. And it's really a true studio experience online. So if you're curious about yoga teacher training, here we're both encouraging you to explore it and check it out. Okay, and let's go back now to you. So you did your training.
I did my training, and I really learned a lot, honestly. It was hard. Let me just say the training is not easy. It challenged me. There was homework, there were tests. It wasn't just like a walk in the park. I had to actually apply myself and work at it. But when I finished, I felt completely transformed in a way that I didn't even realize. And when I started teaching classes, I felt very unprepared and felt like I didn't know enough. But then once I got in front of people and I started looking at people, I realized that, wow, I really did learn a lot. And I can see a lot of things in people's bodies, and I can actually help them. And of course, since my teacher training, I've done other trainings, lots of workshops. I did another 100-hour training in Ashtanga. I did a 300-hour training as well. So I do encourage people, if you do want to teach, if you are a teacher or you do want to teach, always be learning, always be taking trainings and workshops and things, because it's not something that you can just learn all of. There's always more. So I encourage, all teachers to just learn.
And for the people out there who know they want to teach, I think one of the biggest fears and hangups, and I know it's a fear and hangup I had when I was starting, was how do you make a living doing this, right? What's realistic to expect? And I'd love for you to share with listeners your story, because you're the breadwinner for your family, you're, this powerhouse, but I know you started from nothing and from a very financially insecure place at the beginning. Walk us through how that happened and what your transition from corporate to sort of pursuing this and to now, having trained hundreds of teachers yourself look like. And of course, we want to talk about YouTube too.
Well, I think my story is a little unusual. So I did start off in corporate sales, and I sold software and services when I was living in San Francisco, and I made a very, very good living doing that. But I felt empty. It wasn't fulfilling to me at all, and it was sort of depressing even at times. And so I loved yoga. That's why I went to yoga too, was because it made me feel better. And I thought, and the people at the studios where I practiced, I thought, have you ever thought about being a teacher? And that was when I was still in San Francisco, and I thought, no, I could never do that. But when I moved to Orange County, my first son was born. He was about a year old, and then he was about 2 when I started the teacher training. And in the meantime, my husband was working. He was doing mortgage loans. But this was back when subprime mortgages were all the rage, and he had a business like that. And that business, as we know, kind of blew up, basically. So he had been doing mortgages, and I was actually doing mortgages with him for a while too. And then that whole industry just kind of blew up. In the meantime, YouTube started. YouTube was very, very new. This was like 2007, 2008. And my husband decided that he wanted to be a talk show host. And so he started a YouTube channel. And we did it out of our bedroom in Laguna Beach. And we had people that would come over and he would interview them. And it was really just for fun. But he really wanted to do it. And so he ended up quitting his job. Well, his job kind of went away, but then he had like another job, but he didn't like it at all and he quit it. And in the meantime, while I was in teacher training, I found out I was pregnant with our second son. So he was about 6 months old when this happened, and my husband's not working, and I'm teaching yoga. And yoga teachers, for those who don't know, don't make a whole lot of money. I think we made at the studio, I'd make like $30 a class. I got into teaching in corporations, which paid a little bit more like $70, $75 a class, which was kind of a lot.
But people have to keep in mind here, it's like you teach a class, maybe 2 a day, right? It's not like you have back-to-back corporate schedule.
Exactly. And you're driving around, and then, I'm a mom, so I have children. It wasn't easy. I'll tell you, it was not easy. And my husband was not finding a new job because he had this dream, like he was following his dream. He was a writer, comedian, super talented, super creative guy. But it was financially a disaster because here we are, a family of 4 living in Orange County, California. We were in Laguna Beach. We couldn't stay there because the rent was way too high. We had a house that we bought in San Francisco around 2001, I think. We were renting that out. We ended up losing that house. We had so much debt because we were used to living in a way that was, based on how much we had been making previously, that when I wasn't working, in corporate stuff anymore, wasn't making a good living, and he wasn't working at all, everything just kind of like blew up. So we basically lost everything. And it was a really, really difficult time. We lost our house, and we had so much debt that we filed bankruptcy, and I was getting food stamps at one point as I was teaching yoga. It was a very, very difficult time. So fast forward, there were some dark days, and I was teaching, I want to say probably 16 to 20 classes a week to pay the bills. And we moved to, a less expensive home, and we really cut back on everything. We sold our cars and got cars that we could pay off, cars that were paid off, so we didn't have car payments. We had no credit cards. We lived, just cash, and we lived month to month for a while. Then, and my husband did the talk show for a couple of years, but it never went anywhere. But he learned a lot about YouTube, which comes into play later. My husband decided that he wrote a screenplay, and he wanted to create a movie. So he got a new camera, and he wanted to try it out because he hadn't used it before, needed to practice. So he said, hey, can I just film you doing yoga over at the Shala, one of the places where I was teaching? And I said, okay. So we went there. He filmed me doing yoga. Then he set me up to do a voiceover so I could teach the class that I had done. And we put it up on YouTube, and we totally forgot about it. And then maybe 9 months or a year had gone by, and I did another one. Put it up, forgot about it. And then maybe another 9 months went by, and Duke said, those videos that we put up, those are getting some really good views and some really nice comments. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if there's, anything we could do with that. So in the meantime, the kids are getting older now. They're probably, around 8, 9, 7, around those ages. And they're way into this thing called Minecraft on YouTube. And they're watching Minecraft constantly. In fact, they're watching YouTube constantly. They don't even watch television anymore. And then we come to find out that these YouTube people that, put on these games and things, that was what they do to make a living. We thought, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder if we could make a living on YouTube. And then I got connected with somebody that I had been in touch with before that works with yoga teachers a little bit. And they started a sort of like a YouTube collective for yoga teachers. And we worked with them. And they told us, you have to put up a new video every week and you have to answer comments and, just how to stay engaged with our audience. And Duke kind of knew a lot of it from his YouTube time anyway. So we started putting up, and this was like 2014, I think. We started putting up one class every week, and I would answer comments and started connecting with people, and it just sort of grew organically. We still haven't done any kind of promotion really for our channel. We haven't actually done any ads or anything like that that we've paid for. We want to, but we really don't know how to that much. So, but it kind of grew organically. And then we did a couple of challenges, and those were super helpful. 30-day programs that we did in January a few years in a row, and those were really helpful. And we also created a couple of courses that we sold, and those were helpful as well. So, and then I was doing, in the meantime, I think around 2010, I started teaching teacher trainings, and that was another way to sort of help us pay the bills too. And I found out I absolutely loved it, so it worked out really, really well. But it was a way to sort of supplement our income, and so I was able to teach fewer classes during the week, which was nice because I was gone on the weekends all the time with teacher training. So it was still a really kind of busy time where I want to say I was sort of on the edge of burnout, I would say. And then the YouTube stuff started. And, it takes a long time to build up on YouTube. It's not like, I'm going to do a YouTube channel and then all of a sudden, you're making enough money to pay the rent. It doesn't work that way. It's a few years usually, I think, to build for most people. Some people, it's different and they kind of, blow up quickly. But for most of us, it takes a while to kind of to get that going. And so it was a process. It was a process, and there were many times where I questioned, what am I doing with my life? Is this really a good idea? Should I really be teaching yoga? Because it doesn't pay very well. But at the same time, I would get so many beautiful emails and comments from people around the world that said how much the yoga had helped them and how much, how grateful they were for it and how they wouldn't be able to practice yoga without our YouTube channel. And so with that, I don't know, I just looked at it as a way that I was on the right path. Even though many times it felt like I wasn't, I just took that as a sign from the universe that yeah, you're on the right path. Here are people telling you how much they appreciate what you're doing.
This podcast was brought to you by SivanaSpirit.com. In ancient Indian mythology, and even today, chakras are considered to be the most important energy centers in the body. It's been said that when all 7 energy points are aligned, deep spiritual development occurs. When the chakras come into balance, they bring harmony, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. In fact, sometimes when we feel off, it's really just these energy points that need to be worked on. Celebrate the 7 chakras with a beautiful must-have chakra tank. Printed down the spine with sophisticated metallic ink, the chakras are represented by unique hand-drawn symbols. You can add a pop to your style with elegance, all while reminding yourself of the deeper spiritual truth of our world. Use the exclusive discount code PODCAST30 for 30% off your first order today. Do you want a $25 gift card from SivanaSpirit.com completely for free? It's super easy. All you have to do is fill out a quick survey with 7 short questions, and then you'll be emailed your gift card to use whenever you're ready. This survey will help us better understand the most important thing in the world, you. Go to SivanaSpirit.com/podcast survey today and claim your reward. Again, that's SivanaSpirit.com/podcast survey. I love you sharing this story because I think so many people feel so afraid to make a change in their career or to pursue teaching yoga or to do whatever it is they really love and are called to do in life. And listening to you, it's like, if you can do it as a mother of 2 young children, supporting your whole family by yourself, and just sort of finding this path and co-creating with your husband to build what's now one of the largest yoga channels on YouTube. For listeners who maybe don't know you, I mean, Lesley has over 300,000 subscribers, huge channel, and obviously a lot of now both professional, personal, and financial success, which is so great. I think it really means like anyone can do it, no matter where they are in their life. If they're passionate about teaching or passionate about anything, that this is something that they can pursue and that they can do. And did you ever think like, I have to go back to a corporate job, or, just how did you deal with that fear when you were working to support your family?
Yeah, I definitely felt that fear a lot. And I felt that, yes, I need to go back and get a corporate job. And I even interviewed a few times for different positions. And one I remember was really close. And when I got really close to it looked like I might get hired, I got so sad. I was like, I really don't want to do it. And so I have a friend who's like sort of a mentor to me, like a sort of like a spiritual guide type of a person. And she said, Lesley, she said, I just really feel like you're meant to teach yoga. She said, you're a healer. That's what you are. And so she does evolutionary astrology. And so she has done my chart like years ago. And then it sort of like takes it from a perspective of, this is your soul and this is your soul's purpose. Like your soul came in with these sort of signatures on it. Like, my soul came in with a lot of guilt, and how I needed, like, that was one of the things that I needed to sort of recover, is feeling confident about myself and letting go of guilt that, I'm not a bad person. I'm okay. So she said, I know based on the work that I've done with you and with the evolutionary astrology, she's like, I know that you're a healer. Like, that's what you are. And I see in your chart that, and this was like so long ago, this was probably before I started even teaching yoga. She said, I just see you in your chart as someone who will be affecting a lot of people and healing a lot of people. I just really see that that's where you're going. And so she said to me when I would have doubts, she'd say, Lesley, I know that you're on the right path. I know that this is who you are. And if you have to live out of your car with your family and continue on your path, then do that, because it's that important. And I was like, wow, okay, thank goodness I didn't have to live out of my car, but it really sort of put it into perspective for me that, what, I must be on the right path. Like, there's all these messages that were coming to me from her, from, people leaving comments and emails and, just all these messages that I kept getting that I was doing what I was supposed to be doing. So I just continued on, even though it was terrifying at times.
I'm sure we have a lot of people listening who are also already yoga teachers, or maybe they're in training now, or again, they have that dream of teaching. What advice do you give people? And I'm happy to share mine as well, but I really want people to hear from you. What advice do you give yoga teachers about teaching in the digital age, right? Because obviously there is the good news now to connect with so many more people and to really be your own boss and build your own business and take advantage of things like Instagram and YouTube to create a following and to create community if you want to. When people or teachers who are graduating from your trainings or just other teachers in the community ask you, what tips do you give them?
I like to tell people that if you love yoga and you feel like this is what you're meant to do, that you continue doing it, regardless of what the obstacles are, because yoga has become just so much more popular over the last, even 5 or 10 years that, it's become sort of a crowded space now, I think, for many people. If you choose to become a yoga teacher, you sort of have to figure out where you fit. And I do think it is important to figure out where you fit and what your values are. If you're interested in just getting a bunch of people liking what you're doing, how are you, if that's what you're interested in, it's okay, but it's also important to know what your own motives are. Why do you want a bunch of people liking what you're doing? Why do you want a bigger stage, quote unquote, to connect with people? Like, what is it that you are conveying? I think is very important to know about yourself, because if it's just all about being able to do twisty yoga poses, it looks super cool, but is that really yoga? Is that really a sustainable practice for most bodies?
And what do you tell them about the financial piece? Because I know that's something I struggle with as people consider making the investment in a teacher training, which can be $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. Obviously, there's a value that's completely intangible, which we talked about at the beginning of this episode, which is that your life will completely change and every relationship will be transformed. And I'd say you can pretty much guarantee you'll be happier. However, the financial piece is an issue because if you are just planning to teach in a studio, like we said, I mean, you could just be earning $30 a class twice a week. And who can live on that in America or maybe anywhere?
I am very honest with people and I tell them exactly what my experience was. I tell them exactly that when I started teaching yoga, it was, $30 a class and it was not easy. So it's important to think out of the box, so to speak, and figure out ways that you can create different streams of income. And with the digital age, I think that's a great way. Like if you can create a course, or you can have a podcast, or you can create videos, or if you build a following on Instagram and then you can start working with companies and promote their products, as long as you are a fan of their products, that you believe in them. That's super important too, I think. But there are different ways to create income. I always tell people too about corporate yoga. I think that's a great way to go because in corporate classes, because you're working, with the company, for the company, it's a no-brainer because there are so many studies available that show how advantageous it is for their employees to practice yoga. It really helps with their employees' moods and productivity, and it's wonderful for lowering healthcare costs. So for them, it is it's a big value. And so if you can find companies to work with, you can charge the companies, $150, $200 a class. And it's really, really advantageous for them to do that. So that's another, I think, way that you can create revenue. And then workshops are wonderful, and retreats, and creating sort of your own community is an amazing way to teach. And I look at being a yoga teacher, it's not a job, it's a calling. And so you might get, a paycheck from like a studio, you might get a paycheck from a corporation, but if that studio goes away, if that corporation goes away, it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a yoga teacher anymore because that's your calling. So you continue on looking for ways to serve.
I agree. I sort of put it financially bluntly in sort of three camps, right? It's like you have the choice to continue whatever it is you're doing that financially supports you. And there's women who've taken my training who have full-time jobs and they just add in teaching a class one night or two a week. And it's just pure joy and for pleasure. And they're not worried about the money piece at all. So I see that as sort of like camp A. And then camp B is maybe this hybrid, right? Where you're maybe doing design work or copywriting work or working from home or working part-time and the yoga's supplemental income. And then that last place is, I think, where people need to get really creative. And if you're going to be full on teaching yoga, I share with people that you're also an entrepreneur and business owner, whether you signed up for that or not. I mean, I know we were both just in Europe teaching and I spent, my 10.5-hour flight on the way back just doing billing, invoicing, and, all that unfun back end stuff that no one ever thinks of, but running a, big YouTube channel and business and courses. And that's just the reality of there's a lot of unfun things that come with that territory, whether it's advocating for yourself, making sure you get paid from different corporations. But the good news in that last camp is that there's so many ways to get creative and make money because of social media and all the new platforms that are emerging. And I know in my training, I include a business module, which I wish more trainings would do, because I think people just really don't get an education about what a career in yoga looks like.
Right. Yes, I totally agree. Because you have to wear all kinds of hats. And, and for me, of course, my favorite part, and probably your favorite part too, is teaching yoga. But that's just only a little part of it because there's so much marketing and there's planning. It's almost like project management. And then you put on your marketing hat, and then you put on your financial planning hat, and then, there's all of these different things that you have to social media hat. There's all these different things that you have to sort of learn about if you don't know it. And I didn't know anything. I will just say I knew nothing except how to teach yoga. So for me, it's been a steep learning curve, and I'm still learning, and I'm still failing in some areas. And then I learn from my mistakes and continue on, because it is really, when you work especially when you work for yourself, you have to sort of plan ahead and figure out, okay, what's coming, what am I working on now? What is my project? What's going on? Because you have to kind of figure out what to do. Otherwise, when there isn't any money coming in, it's scary.
With great freedom comes great responsibility. And this is why I really wanted to bring you on the show, because I think it is inspiring for people to know that you didn't know any of this stuff starting out. I didn't know anything about YouTube either when I was starting out. You learn as you go, and there's nothing wrong with that. If anyone is thinking about pursuing this path, like, you don't need to know anything starting out, regardless whether it's teaching yoga or a different dream you have. You can completely learn as you go. And speaking of wearing all of these different hats and how you're so busy, I know I am too, I'd love for you to share with us now how you're staying grounded, kind of what your personal practice looks like. I know you wanted to share with us some rituals you have around creating your own altar in your home, pulling cards, which is something I love to do, but I know you're specifically working with tarot cards, and I really want people to learn and hear about that. So tell us a little bit what behind the scenes in your yoga private life looks like.
Well, I do practice mostly at home. I take some classes as well, but a lot of times it's difficult to get to the studio, which is why I think YouTube yoga is wonderful. Sometimes I take your classes. Sometimes I take other YouTube teacher classes. Sometimes I take my own classes, and it's a way for me to practice at home. Sometimes I just do my own practice. I can figure out what feels good in my body, so I can do that now. And then I also like to incorporate quiet time. I guess you can call it meditation, or I don't know. Sometimes I shy away from I meditate daily, because sometimes it's not really what might be considered like a formal quote-unquote meditation, but quiet time. Quiet time, focusing on breathing. And I do have a little altar in my house, and I have a lot of crystals on my altar, and I have some deities, and I always like to burn some incense and have this quiet time with myself where I'm sitting. And then I have like traditional tarot cards, but I also use angel cards. I really love angel cards. And then I also have a deck that's all animal cards, so I can choose, like different animals, and so, they'll sort of give me insight. And I do believe that when I take that time to quiet down and breathe and become centered, and then I pick the cards, I do use that as another way that I can connect with the universe and what messages I'm supposed to be receiving. Because if I don't do that, I just keep going along and along and along with my life, I don't feel as connected to spirit, or whatever name you have for it. I just don't feel as connected to that.
So I'm going to pause you for a second, because I do want to go a little deeper with you on the cards, because I think it's something people have a lot of questions about. I know when I pull out the cards on my retreats or workshops, people are always like, what? How do I use them? Why do you use this? What does this have to do with yoga? Right? So I want you to go deeper with us on that.
Okay. So I really, like I said, I like the angel cards a lot, and I like the animal cards. And so when I work with my deck, first thing I do is, before I pull any cards at all, I hold it and I touch right to my heart, and I touch each card with my fingers as I hold it, like right in front of my heart. Then I either will do 3 piles, like one will be for something from the past, one for the present, one for the future, or I just put them down on the floor and just kind of fan them all out, and I just look at them, and I just look at the cards that are fanned out, and I pick anywhere from 1 to 3 cards. And there's just something where I just trust that whatever cards I pick are the cards I'm supposed to have that day. So, and usually, there's some sort of significance about the cards that I pull. Sometimes I ask a question like, am I on the right path, or what should I be focusing on next, or things like that. Or sometimes it's just a matter of like, please just give me some sort of a message so that I can know that like it's going to be okay. It just depends on where I am in my life. But I just fan them out. But I always think it's really important to take the deck and hold the deck to your heart and touch each card before picking individual cards. And sometimes too, I'll even take the deck and I'll put it, like I have little bags, like little specific bags for my deck, and I'll put my deck underneath my pillow and I might sleep with it under my pillow for a few nights, just a way to sort of connect my energy with the cards.
And if someone's wondering, like, why are you doing this? What is the point of this? Obviously, I do it as well, and I know my answer, but I want people to hear from you, because I think there's not necessarily for many folks like a clear correlation between yoga, meditation, and even a spiritual practice. Then it's like, why are you pulling these random cards?
I do it because I feel that it is a connection to the higher self and to the universe. I feel that there's much more to our world than what we can experience with our five senses. I just believe that there is more that is being revealed by, even by scientists and things. But I do think that there are forces that exist, and it's a way for me to sort of connect with those forces and also connect again with my higher self.
I agree. When people ask me, I say it's a way to connect with my non-linear mind and receive messages from source energy and universal consciousness on a daily basis. So even if the cards maybe aren't right or don't resonate, or you think it's all woo-woo, it's still a ritual of taking time away from the computer, or even just like away from your rational mindset, to open yourself up to something bigger than yourself and say, hey, I'm ready to receive a message that's beyond, as you said, the five senses, or beyond what's in my exact plan or logical part of my brain for right now. And I think just taking the time to do that, whether you believe in the cards or the deck specifically or not, is healing and needed in this day and age so much. And sometimes they give great insights and sometimes they don't. But I really am glad to share this with folks, and glad that you do this as much as I do, because I also think some people think that, oh, if you're pulling cards or getting a card, it's like you need to be getting a reading, or you need to be going to someone professional, or you need to have like a super specific question or pull them in a super specific way. And my big message is like, no, you really don't. You can just pull a card. It's just like general inspiration to get in touch with source energy, or as you said, your highest self. It's just an invitation to slow down and receive a message, and there's no fancy stuff you need to do. Of course, you can get super fancy, especially with tarot, if you want to, but you can also just pull one card and meditate on it. And have you heard, or do you know anything about the tarot as connecting to the chakras?
I don't know very much about that, but it sounds amazing.
Okay, well, I'm not an expert either, but I have to ask you because I do. Each of the tarot families, it correspond and connect with chakra energy as well. So maybe I can find someone to come on a future podcast so we can both deep dive and learn more about that, because there's some cool parallels there. Lesley, it's been so great to connect with you, and I really want to thank you, and I'm sure listeners as well, for just how honest you've been in this episode, how much you've shared with us. How can people connect with you more, whether they want to go on your retreats, trainings, or just find you online?
Well, you can find me, of course, on YouTube if you type in Fightmaster Yoga. And by the way, Fightmaster is my last name. It's not like some made-up thing. I just married that name, and there's a real grandpa Fightmaster. So it's a real last name. Or you can go to fightmasteryoga.com, and you can find me on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook. What's
that other network?
What's that other one? At Fightmaster Yoga. So if you just type in Fightmaster Yoga, you will find me for sure. And I would love to connect. And thank you so much, Brett. This has been really, really nice, because I don't usually talk very much at all about pulling cards or about, crystals and things, because it's sort of like a quote unquote woo-woo thing to do. And I'm a very skeptical person, but I'm also very open-minded. So even though, and I've sort of decided a long time ago that I don't know what the truth, quote unquote, the truth is. I have no idea what the truth is. And nobody else does either. So instead of trying to figure out what the truth is, I like to go with what feels comfortable and nice for me while I'm here on this planet. So keeping that open mind is so important for me, and I think for everybody, that, you know, it doesn't have to be one answer or one way fits everybody, you know. So it's great to explore, it's great to look at different things, to enjoy your time. Just enjoy your time while you're here.
Such a great note to end on. Lesley, thank you so much. We'll put links where everyone can find you in the description below. Sivana family, are you a part of the Sivana Facebook group? If you're not, come find us at Sivana East Facebook group. Would love to have you in there, hear your thoughts about the show, hear future guests or topics you're interested in. And remember, if you enjoyed Lesley and I's conversation, we would so appreciate a quick rating or review on iTunes. It really helps get the show in front of more eyeballs, and of course, would really appreciate your honest feedback as well. So much love from our hearts to yours. Namaste.
You've been listening to the Sivana podcast. To find out more about Sivana, go to SivanaSpirit.com or follow Sivana on Facebook at Facebook.com/Sivana Spirit. For daily inspiration, check out our blog at SivanaEast.com. Be sure to join us next week for a new episode, and thank you for listening to the Sivana podcast.